From the Wherever I May Roam studio, this is the Youth Gone Mild podcast, where hairlines fade, but rock never does. I'm your host, Gen X Joe. On this podcast, I sit down with the legends and the voices who have built the foundation of rock behind the songs that we crank way too loud today. But we're not just looking back. We're also turning up the volume on the new blood, carving their own path in rock with fresh energy, ideas, and a whole lot of attitude. So, for you old heads like me, think of the Youth Gone Mild podcast as your liner notes to the stories and the news from the artists we worshipped and from the new blood keeping that bick lit. And as for you Gen Zs and younger listeners, if you're listening, and if you are, thank you for tuning in. Hopefully, you're bumping up the volume on the Youth Gone Mild podcast and learning a little about the music that came before you and discovering new artists that keeps me rocking like dockin'. Yeah, go ahead, figure out what that means. I'll wait. So, whether you grew up spinning vinyl, wearing out cassette tapes, collecting CDs, loading up MP3s, or streaming your favorite bands of today, settle in, get ready for another conversation with the artist that keeps rock alive and kicking. Once again, I'm Gen X Joe, and this is today's Youth Gone Mild podcast interview.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going great, my man. How about yourself?
I'm on the road to recovery. I've been dealing with some dental issues and not fun. Yeah, I got I had some teeth extracted a while back, and I got what's called jawbone something necrosis, and it's like this infection that I feel it like all over my body, and it went away, but then I just had a chipped tooth, and it reactivated the infection, and I've been like just not exactly myself for a few months now. Feeling better that it's going to be taken care of soon, but definitely just been out of my mind for a little bit.
Well, I wish you the best on that, man. And hopefully they gave you some strong antibiotics.
Well, the antibiotics are the problem. They've been like fucking up my stomach and not actually doing the trick because I had really severe ear infections when I was a kid. So I have a real strong immunity to antibiotics. But I'm about to actually go on methylene blue mouthwashes and a couple other things, and I'm hoping to kick it with some of those stuff. But I spared you my blue mouth before thing. It'll be later tonight. I'll
Well,
be
I appreciate
mouthwashing with the
that.
methylene blue.
Other than that, you've been pretty well, or
Yeah, my podcast is doing really well, and then my company just started actively pitching our music catalog for licenses. So we just reestablished contact with some of my friends at ESPN and A&E, so we can start licensing through their networks. And my company, Blacklight District Studio, is about creating community and kind of giving a hub, a launching pad for the creative people of tomorrow. I think that the next generation of creative people are going to be really multifaceted, and much like I was, but there's a lot more of that in the younger generation. They want to know about a lot of different things, and there's a lot of tools out there and ways to get more information. But I'm trying to, through the website and through this anthology magazine that we're going to be putting out next year, just give people an opportunity to find out what are the best movies to watch, what are the best comics to read, who are the best bands. you know, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, they're adding 3 or 4 bands a year. Fuck that, man. Like there's thousands. And I want to create a repository of all of like this great stuff so that people can go get recommendations. And we've got message boards where people can play music with each other through our boards and work on comics together and post the stuff up. And, it's really about presenting the next generation with music and comic books and entertainment at its highest level that you can produce it. and also exposing them to the great people who have already made great stuff and all the great stuff that they've made. For me, the monoculture, sharing together in the myths and enjoying this stuff together so that we can quote movies and recognize the references and bond through music and bond through ideas. Jesus is a great guy, but he's a really easy point to get an argument started sometimes. And that's the same thing for like any religious figure. But it's easy to kind of get behind Superman and He-Man and these simple mythological constructs that we can all identify why it's good and why there's something there worth emulating. So for me, I'm just like really trying to give myself to helping the next generation get into the business a little bit easier and to hopefully give them a pathway to something better. I mean, the entertainment industry, I don't know if you fucking figured this out yet, but it's a fucking psyop. It's all propaganda.
Yeah.
It's literally, the amount of huge Oscar-winning fucking films that Mossad has fucking funded so that they could propagandize to the US public what they want us to think about their country and their politics. And like, it's freaking crazy. And the CIA, said it years ago, once everything that the American people believe is a lie, we will have done our job. And that was like 50 years ago now. And we are living in that world where everything is some watered down version of the propaganda that they want to hand us. And half of the shit that they've been doing for the past 10 years is just trying to make us fight. I'm
Yeah.
as liberal as they come. And, I keep trying to tell all my liberal friends, you don't understand. I defend the Republicans because the way liberalism has gone is going to destroy us. We need to leave the door open. We need to not reverse haze. We can't go back and be just as bad as the Catholics were to us 20 years ago. We have to be cool like the Fonz. And by being cool and by being open and figuring out how to get along together, that's what's going to move the things forward. And as creative people, the more partisan you are, one direction or another, the less you get through to anybody who you're making your art for. So, if I'm going to make music, I'm not making it just for one group. I don't want to just be preaching to people who think the exact same things as me. I want to be talking to everybody and hopefully having some impact on every single person who listens to my music or reads one of my stories.
The Black Light District project, that kind of blends everything, comics, music, multimedia, like you were just saying. Do you feel like you're ahead of your time with this project?
I'm always ahead of my time. It really sucks. People on the fucking bleeding edge, we just get beat up by the people who are locked into the paradigm of the moment. And they're like, you're extreme, or like, you're damaging the cause. And I'm like, no, I'm just a little ahead of you guys, and I see where this leads. So like I recognizing where this leads, I gotta try to put the brakes on because it's one thing to limit our pronouns to they them. That's a good idea. Let's limit the pronouns. It's a terrible idea to add a shitload of new pronouns. Z, zer, zip. What the fuck is that? Like the most egotistical, self-serving thing. You have a pronoun, it's your name. My name's Jesse. You know, there'll always be like some great idea mixed with some terrible execution of that idea. And people just aren't really long-term thinkers. They'll kind of like go with what, most people are sheep. And I've just never been a sheep. So, I end up getting a lot of blowback from like, the people who really should be embracing me the most a lot of times because I'm a bit ahead of the curve. But at the same time, I do believe that things catch up. And I think that it's all coming into balance. And despite how crazy it might seem in the media, I think the media and everything has just gotten that much crazier because they're trying to get a hold of a population who's tuning out. We have to start to like put our energy in the right place, and people are starting to recognize like, I want peace. I want to figure out how to be cool with everybody. And that's the way, that's the future. We're all one, and everybody's just a reflection of you, and we got to try to learn as much from each other as we can if we want this world to be a better place. And the people that control things right now, they're not going to let that happen. But we have it within our power to be just like the Amish and to create our own community. It doesn't have to be some weirdo community where we're completely different than everything, but our own community where we're just not playing these stupid games anymore. You know, the reindeer games. You know, that whole song's about fucking Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer being different and all the other reindeers trying to bust his chops. You know, you suck, you suck, you suck, until all of a sudden they need Rudolph. You know, and society needs the reasonable people, and we're just going to have to kind of create our own world where Rudolphs are safe, and you know, Rudolphs of all variety. It's not just oh, here's the trans community and we're all insulated and what, like, that's lame. You know, we need to create a community where all are welcome and invited, and nobody's being ostracized, and nobody's being made to feel bad. Well, you used to make me feel bad, so now I'm going to make you feel bad this time. See, now I'm in the position of power. No, that's fucked up. That's reverse hazing. When you recognize hazing's happening and you say, hey, this is messed up. There's slavery, there's manipulation, there's imbalance. Hey, let's get rid of it. Not let me get into a position of power so then I can be the powerful one. That's a fucked up thing to do. And it really leaves people like me, you know, a theoretical straight white guy, even though I'm non-binary and I'm an Ashkenazi Jew, but at a glance, you know, I'm lumped into this group of people that are now persona non grata. It's ridiculous. I am one of the reasons why we're on this other fucking side where liberalism has taken hold in the way that it has, by trumpeting the fact that something had to be done and that there was imbalances and somebody should speak up. But then it became a popular thing to speak up. And when things become popular, you get people doing them for the wrong reasons. They're not motivated by love and empathy and understanding. They're motivated by getting somewhere in the world. And right now, the whole world is being run by lots of superficial people who recognize the changing of the tide and have rode a wave to success. And they are very happy to step on everybody beneath them. But for me, you know, it's about being the best there is at what you do. And that's it. That's all I've ever tried to be. I like to be the right answer, you know, not like self-righteously right, but like if the moment calls for humbleness, then I will be humble. If the moment calls for boldness, then I will be bold. Whatever the answer that will lead us to the best place is, I want to figure out that answer and embody it to the best of my ability. Because, you know, for too long we've just been stuck in a perpetual loop of warring with each other, whether it's physically or intellectually. And I'm out of that shit, man. I want to help us go to the promised land.
Now, have you ever thought about running for a political office?
When I was a kid, I always believed that I would make my mark on the world in entertainment. I would demonstrate that I was equally valuable as my father. And then I would use the success to run for some sort of office. Now that I know what that really means and what that really entails, I've come to a different place where I really believe that we have to create an island. And, you know, just like I said, like the Amish community, uh, community can be created without barriers and without structure, and, you know, and leadership can be, you know, kind of taken in a non official capacity. You know, it's like when Huckleberry Finn's painting the fence and everybody like, he seems to be having such a nice time. I want to paint that fence too. You know, and before you know it, the person who knows how to attract people and has the right answer, you know, they get people behind them and they can build momentum. And when you have an island that's doing everything right, what happens is the mainland starts trying to emulate the island where they do the things right, and they start trying to pull the island in. So for me, it's about creating something independently from society that you know, doesn't have to listen to any of their bullshit and deal with any of their red tape, and then allow, you know, the proof is in the pudding. You know, everything I've ever done, I do at a very high level, and I think anybody who looks at any comic I've ever written or any books I've published or music I've made or shows I've hosted, voiceover. I mean, I have been successful as a professional in every career I have attempted. And you know, I mean, that includes being a florist and working at comic book stores and construction. And I believe that I am very capable. And I know that if I was in charge of everything all over the world, that this world would be a better place because I don't have any desire to, to abuse anyone. I love people. The big fan of Jim Henson and the Muppet Show, and I always have considered myself a Kermit the Frog. Kermit recognizes that his friends from all walks of life all have different things to offer the world. And he puts on this Muppet Show to give them the opportunity to show what they can do. And I've only ever wanted to be that person. Let me have my chance to shine and let me give you a chance to shine. And I think when we start making room for each other like that, the world is really going to become the utopia that we all imagine in our minds. But it's going to take a lot of humility and people being willing to let other people succeed, if you know what I mean. Really hard sometimes to, get your pride out of the way and let your little brother do better than you. Let somebody succeed where it might seemingly reflect poorly on you. We've got a big world filled with people desperately trying to stop the people around them from showing them up. But I would rather the bar be perpetually raised and we all keep rising to the occasion. I'd rather win because I did such a great job than because everybody else was sucking wind.
How did you become so open-minded? Were you raised this way? Was it self-taught? Did it come naturally for you?
Well, it's one part how I was raised, and then it's another part obsession. I have a bit of like an obsession with not to say like being right, like self-righteous, like Jesse's right. Like I don't care about that. But I'm a Virgo in five houses, and if you know anything about the horoscopes, Virgos were very meticulous, kind of perfection oriented, and I kind of lose my mind when I find out that I've made a mistake. I don't like to make mistakes. I really kind of like to, it's weirdly, I'm like a center of the room kind of guy in my life, in my career, but I'm way more of a behind the scenes type person. I don't really like being like the sore thumb. I don't like sticking out. I prefer to just sort of be there and everything's flowing smoothly if it has anything to do with me. If I'm there, everything that I'm responsible for is going to be perfect. And if it's not, trust that inside my head, I'm going to like set myself on fire. I was just telling my father, I said, one of the reasons why I'm so good at voiceovers is because whenever I get a note, inside, internally, I say, you will never get that note again. I try to make some sort of internal change so that I never hear whatever it was they said. Did I say that word wrong? Okay, I'm always going to say that word right from now on. That's how it's pronounced? Okay. Like, I'm really obsessive about just getting things right. And that's led me to be a very major study. It just in terms of anything, I like to, if anything interests me at all, or I think I might have to talk about something, I like to understand the concepts as best as I can because I never want to be in a position where they're like, "Oh no, you're wrong." Because when I'm wrong, it's such a big deal for me internally. I like, especially if I do something that I feel is like morally wrong, if I've accidentally hurt people's feelings, or I like to be. I'm a bit of a people pleaser, so I like when people are happy. And so an obsession with getting things right is a big part of what has made me who I am. But my family, the Snider family, oh God, I have two brothers and a sister, and my mother is, arguably the most talented of the whole bunch. Everybody knows Dee Snider. Less people know Suzette, but Suzette Snider, she created all the costumes for Twisted Sister. She designed awesome costumes for lots of other 80s bands at the time. She graduated from college at like fucking 17 or something like that at FIT, and she is one of the most talented people on the planet. And I know a lot of talented people. And they are both very open-minded and creative. My dad's security guard, Vic, who was black, and half the members of Twisted Sister, and a lot of the friends and girlfriends and stuff, there was a real mix, Jewish and Spanish and a lot of different walks of life that I was surrounded by from a very young age, and I just accepted that like that was the norm. So for me, as I came into school and I found out about things like, racism or, just homophobia and stuff like that, it was just all sort of like, well, that's weird, like it was sort of like ideas that had never even been introduced to me were all of a sudden being talked about. And I was like, that's true, that's real, like we got to change that. So I've always just had this bit of like a freedom fighter attitude in terms of like, no, 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 like the way that I was raised, that's the way to be. And ultimately the way that I was raised is, you got to be yourself. One of my dad's most famous well, in Britain, it's a big hit over there, called "I Am I'm Me." Over in America, the first hit album for Twisted Sister was "Stay Hungry," which came out after that. But "I Am I'm Me" is such just a great example of what I learned. The lyrics are, "Who are you to look down at what I believe? I'm onto your thinking and how you deceive. Well, you can't abuse me, I won't stand no more. Yes, I know the reason. Yes, I know the score." And that song is just so indicative of the environment that I came from, where you could be brave in your thinking and how you were presenting yourself, and that you should live the way that you wanted to live, and that's not an indictment of the people around you. And just because other people are insecure or they'd like to all the conformity, everybody do the same thing, that doesn't mean that you have to do that. So I've just always been about trying to create a better world and be the best person that I could be, and not afraid to pursue that because of the way that I was raised. I think it's like Mark Twain had said, the cure for racism is travel. The more you're exposed to a bigger world, the more you accept that it exists, especially because, it's like the worst women to listen to online, and it goes the same way with the men, are the women who have only been exposed to a certain type of man that has been very frustrating to them. And then they go online and they say, men are like this and men are like that. Well, you're dealing with a small swath of the men. And there's a lot of men who, for whatever reason, are not appealing to you, so you're not getting to experience those men. And there's similar things that happen with the guys. Oh, women. I don't have a lot of trouble with that. With my women, and I don't. And I hear from most of my girlfriends sort of a, often I'll get like a, you changed my mind about men or something like that, which is awesome because that's what should be happening all the time. Eventually we come across somebody that opens our mind to the possibilities. And like the whole idea of anti-racism is that we're supposed to be judging each other for the content of our character. We're supposed to go, well, let me meet this person and let me never assume that just because this one thing that I know everything about that person. I really, a lot of my personality formed from the idea of judging a book by its cover. When I remember like hearing that saying and like what that meant, and I decided in that moment that I was going to be a book that you could easily misjudge. And actually, because of being Dee Snider's son, being the son of a celebrity, it was people would assume they knew who I was all the time, what I was going to be like, spoiled, or everything handed to me, whatever it was. And that became like, well, I'm going to work harder than anybody, because that way when people go and they make that assumption, they're going to find out they were sorely mistaken. Oh, comic books are for nerds. Oh yeah, well, I read comic books and I'm cool. And it's like, oh well, now you're a nerd. Like sports are for jocks. Oh yeah, well, I play sports. Fuck you. Like, so I would just kind of contradict anything that I would come across, and I would hear it's always this. And I'm like, oh yeah, well, I'm going to be the exception to that stupid rule. And there's a lot of people in this world who are those exceptions, and I'm kind of like the champion for the exceptions to the rule. And the person that you meet that makes you reevaluate going out into the world again. Never make that same assumption ever again. Look, you met Jesse, and he fucking flew in the face of everything that you thought he might be. And honestly, the pursuit of that satisfies me. I like that very much. It makes me happy that I believe I have become that person that I set out to be. And if I have one thing that I really do like about myself is that I have created a rather conundrum, a rather conflicting sort of personality that most people just have never encountered before. And yeah, if you're gonna live, might as well be a memorable personality.
Yeah, 100% with that. Now, you talked about, never judge a book by its cover. And, we're about the same age. And, I heard that many and multiple times. Now, what you were saying is, though, do you think some people may misread you or misunderstand you?
100%. But at the same time, though, I've learned over time that it, we are all kind of psychic. You're sitting in your classroom and you're working on your homework, before the day ends, and you feel eyes on you, right?
Hmm.
And you look up, and sure enough, somebody was looking at you. And that's going on all the time. And I'm very sensitive. Like I got a new friend, Thomas. Shout out to Thomas. Out here, I just moved out to North Carolina to be with my family and work on some of these health issues that I'm having. I've just been dealing with a bunch of things with my teeth and a couple other things. But I met Thomas briefly at this cool little dive bar over here called Monstercade. And as soon as I like looked into Thomas's eyes and just kind of interacted with him a little bit and like caught his smile, I just went, we should be friends, you know? And I think that's going on all the time. And you saw me, I don't know where, but you saw and something about my energy, whether you knew it or not, there was a deeper download in you that said, I like Jesse. I'd like to maybe talk to Jesse. And I think that happens all the time. And the people who are meant to be in your circle are meant to be in your circle. And the people who aren't. I learned a very hard lesson, and it took a long time to learn it. When I was younger and more, or I should say, less self-aware. I was very outgoing, and I'm a people person. I like, especially if I like you, I'll talk a lot. And but it's not because I want to hear myself talk. It's just because I always feel like I don't have enough time with the people that I like. Like I have to leave, and I'm like, oh, I'm leaving the people I like. So it led to me being like, bah, 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 as soon as I had anybody that I liked. And I like the first half of my life, I would get such like a feedback of I was an egotistical person, that I talked too much, that I was arrogant on some level, all these things. I'm very confident, but for me, arrogance is about like sort of like thinking you're better than other people. I don't think I'm better than other people. I mean, I strive to be the best version of me that I can be, but I believe that everybody's capable of that. And I'm somebody who loves to lift people up and encourage people. And the people who are insecure and are maybe a little dark in their own way, they will turn me into a bad guy. And in the second half of my life, I turned like this corner where I went, I'm not going to let them say that I'm an egomaniac and all these things anymore. You know what? I'm going to be quiet. And, I won't speak unless I'm spoken to. And I did a much kind of softer, smaller version of myself. Well, after like 10 years in the music industry out in Los Angeles, I started hearing from like girlfriends of mine and friends of mine who were in the community what was being said about me. And guess what? They said all the same shit. Now my quietness was being taken as arrogance. Um, Everything that I did to like be smaller was, oh, he thinks he's better than everybody. I had been going through a depression at the time, and I lost a lot of weight. And I was very open about, my one drug of choice, which I smoked a lot of marijuana. Even though I've worked with psychedelic plant medicine, but like ceremonially, like psilocybin and ayahuasca, nothing like where I'm using it all the time recreationally. But marijuana, I smoked regularly, and I was very open about it. The rumor was that I was a heroin addict. I've never touched any hard drugs in my life. But this was them go, oh yeah, he's arrogant and he's this and he's that. Look how skinny he is. I was skinny because I don't really eat a lot. And when I'm depressed and I wasn't married anymore and I didn't like to eat by myself. So I just kind of would skip a lot of meals and I got really skinny. And then it was like being projected upon me that I was a drug addict by the same people who would have had a bad reaction to me if I was being my normal self, which is more outgoing and talkative, whatever else. They would have said the same shit. So I couldn't escape it. It didn't matter. You know, the people who are going to hate you or want to fight you, disagree with you, push back on you, they're always going to be there. They'll always be the same people. That's not to say that people don't change, and people do, and they have an opportunity. But you're always going to find some people who aren't necessarily in alignment with that. And honestly, the deepest parts of my own personal spiritual experience through working with like plant medicine and things has been that, I need to embrace who I am. And it's kind of like, I might be medicine for somebody. The personality that I have, it might affect them negatively because I didn't like that. I just wanted to be somebody who I always affected everybody positively. And the idea that on some level I was like intimidating or making somebody feel insecure, I didn't like that. I didn't want to challenge people. And it took a long time to kind of yeah, make peace with the idea that my personality might be challenging for some people, because at the end of the day, somebody like you, it's uplifting and it's supportive, and especially if we're anywhere close on the same page. You hear Jesse talk. I've figured out how to like articulate a lot of these ideas in some pretty simple ways, and people go, "Ah, you have affirmed so much of the stuff that I have in me." And you know what? I think it's more important that we live authentically so that we can affirm the aspects of ourselves that have been sort of hidden away and squandered by mainstream society. That's more important than the idea that I might offend somebody who's playing it safe or is operating in a small way where they're feeling insecure for whatever reason, or feeling extra competitive or something. I don't. I'm competitive in like I like to do well, but I'm very not competitive in terms of like, I just always think there's more to go around and there's enough room for everybody. And, the Muppet Show, let everybody get a couple minutes on the stage. Everybody's got something to offer, and I want to see it. Oh, well, you've been seeing it and realizing it. It's just, that my gift, if I have one really, is an ability to sort of like frame things kind of good. Just I could look at stuff, and it helps me in the comic book world, especially just, because you got to look at a character and you got to go, why do people like Thor? What don't people like about Thor? What are the aspects of Thor that we like to see the most? How do I write a story that emphasizes all the aspects of Thor that we like and plays down some of the aspects that are a little bit less enjoyable, And when you work that way in terms of just like what's the framework, what are we really dealing with here? It gets way easier to discuss, conceptually, and understand a little bit like, well, what are we doing here? What's the point? If the point of liberalism is to make the world a more open-minded place, the way we're doing it right now is really bad because it's putting a lot of people who are the most closed-minded feeling like they're in a corner and feeling like they're being persecuted now themselves. And then that's not going to lead to good things. That's going to lead to a swing back in their direction. Then eventually we'll have a swing back in our direction. And it's going to be the first group that decides like, okay, it's swung back in our direction and the door's open for you. We accept you completely. It's all good, guys. Let's be friends. That's what we need. We just need some really open-minded people, and we need to be way less nuanced about like, cutting our moms and dads off because we don't quite see eye to eye on Donald Trump. Like, it's like, come on, guys. That's, like we love each other infinitely. We have a stack of problems with one another, but we need to see past the problems to the infinite love for living in this world and interacting with all the beautiful animals and beautiful plants and beautiful people and beautiful ideas. I promise you, there is a band out there that you love and you don't know it, but you and that person have completely different political ideas. There's a storyteller that you love and you've got completely different political ideation, completely different religious standpoints. These things like make art so great, when we don't know exactly where everybody comes from, but we get to experience their art. We get to experience their soul through what they make. I'd said to my dad a long time ago now, and he really embraced this over the years. And I don't know if he remembers that I had said this to him, but there was just a moment where he was pushing back a little bit on some Trump stuff, because Trump was using his song and there was a couple things. And I just said to him, your music is medicine. And we've gotten to this point where everybody gets so noisy politically. And depending on where you are on the spectrum, if the wrong person or the right person says the wrong thing, people are ready to just, that person's out of my life. I'm never going to listen to Bruce Springsteen ever again. And I said, if we think that maybe the Republican side of things could use a little bit of extra empathy, right? Well, what better than to infect them with the music of Twisted Sister that is open-minded to all walks of life? Like they need your medicine. And if you were to say something on fucking X that, what does it really matter? But it were to stop people from getting the medicine that you make. What a loss that is of the power you are as a witch doctor, as a medicine man, to be helping to open people's minds and open people's souls. So, and my whole family, we started a film company, and that's out here in North Carolina, where we're going to be making movies out here, and it's called Defiant Productions. And me and my dad were just talking yesterday just about how, the goal with this company is just to be non-political, just like we want everybody to be able to enjoy our films. We don't want anybody to feel like we're against them. We're here to entertain everybody. We're here to bring everybody together. Let's get on the same page. It's a far better thing when we can, disagree but still love each other, still get along. Like I really believe most people have gotten to this place. But the big problem with, if you look at the internet and you look at the media, is that we're at like something like 70% of all internet traffic is bots. And the bots are just playing the yin yang game, back and forth, back and forth. So if you go and like look at the internet, it just seems so polarized, especially because even the people who aren't necessarily polarized, in order to get clicks, in order to get into the algorithm, you need to be polarized. You need to polarize your posts. A lot of people will post things that are completely ridiculous that they don't believe because they know that people are going to come and go, oh, what? That's insane. And have something to say about it. The way the internet has generated itself and propagated itself over time has created an illusion of division that I think has been lessening over time, where less and less and less people are so divided, and more people are just exhausted, don't want to fight anymore. And we just, I think really most people, we just want to figure out how to get along and how to move this world into a better direction.
What you said, if you say something wrong, well, I just can't love that person anymore or like that person anymore. That seems to be the standard right now, the norm. And it absolutely bothers the shit out of me. Doesn't matter, what side of the political pole I am on. If you're my friend first and we've had other things in common, why let one common thing like politics separate you?
Yeah, you can't let there be any sticking points. We're not living in the world that, our great grandparents were in. Most war is ideological and, it's silly kind of stuff. And most of the way things are delivered to us, ideas are delivered to us, are without any nuance. Everything's become, clip oriented. So many of the Donald Trump defenders, like it's an easy thing to become a Donald Trump defender. If you start to go like deeply look at everything he's ever said and then what the media said he said, and then the argument, like it's just, no, well, he didn't actually say that. What he actually said was, and then meanwhile, there are people who are building their entire life around, do you know what happened? And they haven't looked into the thing any deeper than it has just been passed on to them. And there is a lot of nuance. There is a lot more at play. And the world has become very hyperbolic, but also in this way where people feel completely justified to just like throw a relationship by the wayside, if it's, if there's just like one hair out of place. The internet made it easier to find our tribe, but it also has eventually led to this thing of like, I'm only comfortable with my tribe exactly, the people who believe exactly what I believe. I think comic books are kind of one of the best examples of this, of like an industry that has been destroyed by partisan politics. And it's such bullshit because there are no more open-minded people in the world than the geeks. You know, the reason why the X-Men has been one of the most popular comic books for ages and ages and ages is because there are all walks of life there. You know, Storm is a favorite character. Black Panther is a favorite character. You know, if you read comic books, you're not like, you know, I like Captain America and I like the Hulk, but fuck Black Panther. He's a black guy and I don't like them. Like, no, nobody is saying that. Like, this is not an attitude that exists in that world. At the end of the day, they're not real people. They're myths, but they're myths that have been propagating lots of good ideas. And when the culture war came to comic books, it split comics right down the middle. And I was telling my dad last night, we were talking about two of my idols, Mark Waid, who was my editor. He was the editor-in-chief at Boom Studios when I wrote Toy Story comics and the Muppets. I love Mark. I love you, Mark. And Ethan Van Sciver, who was one of the most talented artists at DC Comics for forever. He became the fucking head of the Republican snake. And Mark Waid's become the mouthpiece for the Democrats. Doing this has not done either one of them any favors. And just so you understand, Ethan Van Sciver, when I was a no-name comic book writer coming up, he invited me to pitch him some stuff to work with me. And I kind of fumbled my pitch to Ethan a little bit and kind of like I felt like I embarrassed myself, so I didn't like go back for seconds immediately and I moved on to other things. But I will always love Ethan for having an open door for me. And Ethan, despite what anybody wants to say, I've never heard him say a fucking racist thing in his life. He's a very nice guy. He's a bit of an asshole. You know, some friends in your life are the guys who are like, yeah, you're a little bit of an asshole. Like, you know, he'll poke and prod at people, whatever. And he's conservative. But he became the conservative poster child, and he was very hurt because he was basically run out of DC Comics on a handcart, and people who were his friends yesterday were all of a sudden not his friends anymore. And I understand why Ethan would be mad about that. And it's really not fair the way that Ethan has been characterized. But if you want to look at this, Mark Waid, one of his favorite characters is Superman. Because of Dan DiDio at DC, for a long time, he wasn't getting an opportunity to write Superman. He's Superman embodied. He's supposed to be. He is for me. And Ethan is maybe Batman embodied. The guy who's going to maybe beat the guy up a little bit. He's a little bit of an asshole. Well, in the comics, Superman and Batman are on the same team. They figure out how to work together. And it breaks my fucking heart that two pillars of the industry who have been reading all the same fucking books that I have been, who have been immersed in the freaking culture of comics their entire life like I have been, can't fucking see that they are the problem. They are supposed to be the two guys who see the world different but freaking come together to be the Justice League and make the world a better place. And instead, they are the leadership of the divisive portion of the population ruining my fucking hobby, ruining geek culture. And somebody like me, who doesn't have the fucking legacy that they do, has to be a person who's going to lead the charge to change comics and show people how it should be, because all of the freaking people whose names you know have chosen sides like assholes. They're fucking assholes, and they're hurting all of us. They're hurting all of the creative people. They're hurting all of the fans of the hobby, and it's just, it kills me. It kills me, and like one day, I'm going to get both of them individually at a table, and I'm going to tell them, you are an embarrassment. I love you, and you have embarrassed me. You've embarrassed what this means. You've embarrassed the myth that you represent, and it's disgusting, and you need to fucking make amends. You need to go over there, and you need to make friends with Mark Waid, and you need to say, let's get along, because this is some fucking bullshit. And somebody like you, who respected you more than anybody on the planet, because I respect the craftsman, you have hurt my fucking soul, and you have no idea how badly you've hurt this fucking hobby, because you guys are so fucking self-righteous that you had to pick a side and be the leader of your side, and everybody else who's not on your side is bleh. Like, screw you guys. This is just so stupid. If the Punisher and Daredevil and Spider-Man could go fucking get together and kick some bad guys because they recognize what the real evil is, then you should be able to do the same thing. And it's such a disheartening state of affairs that I've been in the geek culture world for the past bunch of years, especially just because when I open my mouth, so many of my peers just want to go, shh, 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 shh. I'm like, no, no, this sucks. Why are we doing this? It's just so freaking lame.
I can tell you're passionate about that. And there's so many things you are passionate about.
People don't understand. They think, oh, you're a successful comic book writer, or voiceover actor or whatever. My dad, he's a rock star. Getting into like the 90 percentile of like people doing well in a moment, and most comic book writers, we're not even close to that. I mean, really, like we get paid shit, and like most of the people who make comic books are because we have a passion for it. And unless you're at the top tier of music, you are hustling. You have to do a lot of things. My father's money situation has gone up and down and up and down, and you're always trying to not keep up with the Joneses, but sort of like maintain a certain like lifestyle that you get to, and it gets really hard, and then it gets easier for a second and hard. The people that we are all up against, they have more money than you can fathom. The 0.01% control everything. And for them, money is not a question. It's not something they think about. They have so much resources to do whatever they want to do that it's unfair. The majority, I mean it's 99.9% of every music artist, every comic book writer, every screenwriter, every director that you have ever seen, they are not that level of powerful, wealthy, whatever. The idea that AI might make it a little bit easier for a songwriter like myself to get some of my music out into the world, anybody who really loves me should be just going, go for it, Jess. Send me the songs. Like that's what I would say to Jared Way, or say to any of these people who, if right now they can't make any more music because they can't afford it and it's going really fucking slow and they're sitting on a bunch of things and they want to make some things and some other, like, I'm not going to freaking chastise any of these people for doing it. I don't have the money to just keep laying out perpetual things to buy studio time and hire a bunch of artists to come and learn my songs, because I wrote them and it's only me. It's my project. It's my little baby project. I believe in this, but not everybody does. There's so much that goes into doing these things. And to be able to bring to life a music video that you've had in your mind for years and years, but you just couldn't afford to do it. Are we seriously going to like cancel these musicians because like, oh man, the AI afforded me the ability to make the thing that I saw in my mind? Like, that's wonderful. I think we have to recognize that there's good things that come with this, and then there's bad things that come with it, and really try to get ourselves intellectually to a higher state where we can really focus on the things that we want to avoid, like films being written completely by a computer and then given some fake name, and the film's generated completely, and then they're charging us, blah, 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 blah. That's the problem. The problem is going to be the people who are taking advantage of us and taking advantage of the artists. Because, and I'll wrap this up, but the state of the arts has always been that. In comics, they know that you want to write comics. So when you go to them, you spend so much time freaking just waiting, and like there's no rush on their behalf. You have to get yourself into such a top tier position to be able to dictate any terms to anybody. It's just like, we're Marvel Comics and we know you want to work for us. We're DC Comics and we know you want to work for us. Oh, you want to direct movies? Oh, you want to be an actress? Come sit on this couch right here and suck me off. That is the world we live in. If they know that we want the job, they will make us work for it. And they don't like us having any power or control. I've seen that's like a big thing in comics and music everywhere. They want to be the ones with the good ideas. They want to be the ones who are making all of the choices. You don't really make the choices. You're just the face of the thing. So for them to be able to now go and use AI to erase artists from the face of the planet, that is what most of the executives have in mind right now. And that is what the average consumer who loves the arts has to be looking out for. And that's the thing that all of the artists and all of the enjoyers of the arts have to unite together to fight against. But as with everything, it's nuanced. There's a lot of sides to it. You can't just come down blanket, nah, you come down blanket, yeah, because it's always going to be a little bit of a mixed bag. there's so many young artists that I'm sure are just coming up in this AI world, and naturally there's a tool there, and they're using it for one aspect or another. And the idea that any of these old artists are going to look down their nose, and back in my day, like we all have been trying not to be that guy, not to be that, oh, your ball landed on my lawn again. Like generally speaking, we as people, human beings, we try to avoid getting old. And that is part of the thing. Like, a lot of the artists, like, they've become old already. AI's already existed, in 5 years of like us, like, pretty actively using this thing. And there's a whole generation of people that when they go, blah, 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 they just go, because they feel judged, and that's it. They never like are exposed to that person's artistry ever again. And any sort of nuanced opinion, when we're not like just shouting people down or whatever, is always the better way to go, just in terms of leaving the door open. If you want to be able to have a conversation about AI, don't shit talk AI completely, because most of the people who are interested in a conversation about AI are interested in AI in a little bit. If you want to be able to affect that conversation, and like I'd like to be able to say, well, if you're an artist using AI, try to use it in ways that are accomplishing things that would be really hard to accomplish without the AI. Like that makes it a more fucking reasonable thing to do it that way. There are ways in which you can use AI that is, more power to you. I'm glad that you didn't waste all your life savings trying to produce, something when it was relatively easy to do it like this. And the idea and the heart and the soul of what you were trying to make is still there. It's another thing when you've got corporations who are about to take all of the soul out of movie making, out of music making, out of everything, and just give us a homogenized whatever. But, artists using it as another tool. And already for years I do Photoshop, and for years we've had various kind of AI, artificial intelligent Photoshop tools that you can use, where you can select a thing and you can get it to like make up what it should be. Oh my God, what a gift that tool has been. So many of the things that largely are going away are a lot of tedious work that, God, like who wants to do all this tedious work? It's really nice when we can have an AI to come along and, not, without touching the soul of what I'm trying to do. Can you help me fix this real quick? Oh, great. Thanks so much, AI. I love you. Move on with my life. Like that's a positive thing. It really is a nuanced issue, as every fucking issue always is. And I think we all have to just put on our grown-up pants and try to just have more intelligent conversations about all this stuff if we really want to see it grow to a better place and go to a better place. Because as long as it's pro AI and anti AI, well, then there's not a lot of nuance in that conversation. How are we supposed to get the middle of what is actually being done with AI to be to a better place? We need the people on the pro side and the people on the anti side to come together, and they're conversating, because that moves forward the way it's actually being executed. And then we're living in a better world where it is being used the right ways.
No, you're absolutely, again, absolutely right on that. And I know you were going to wrap it up there, and I don't want to cut you too much short.
um, Talking about embracing things, like the idea that music is free and comics are free. Well, go to blacklightdistrict.studio, where all my music is free. Everything that I've ever made is free. There's a subscription model that's launching this weekend. It's $52 for the year, I think $7 a month or something like that. And I'll be releasing a new song every weekend. Most of them are these healing frequency songs that I've been producing over the past few years. But a bunch of things that I produced traditionally as well. And those songs, in 6 months, they will be free on the website as well. But there are some cool exclusive things. And every comic book that Blacklight District Studio has ever produced is free on our website. And even if you click around a little bit, you can find some PDFs of some comics that I did for other companies that shouldn't be up there. But if you click around enough, you might find them. Free music, free comics, free boards and places for people to come together, work on art, work on comics, work on music, whatever it is that you want to collaborate on, and we got lists that are going up for some of the best movies and the best bands and the best comic books. This is a place where we can share in the monoculture together, and there are plenty of different ways where we can make money, whether it's on Kickstarters for physical media and stuff, but all of our stuff is digitally available and free for people to check out. So if you like anything that I said and you want to support me and support what I do, head over to blacklightdistrict.studio. I work with some of the greatest people on the planet, like Digger Mesh, who's our art director, and Aaron Sparrow, who's our editor-in-chief, and just so many wonderful souls working at blacklightdistrict.studio. All of us for free, just out of the passion that we have for all the stuff that we're doing, because it's not like we've really been like making a lot of money right now. Everybody's just on individual projects. We're making money, but we have a dream to bring us together, bring this community together. And if you want to be a part of that community, please join us over at blacklightdistrict.studio. That sums up plenty for me. But if you'd like to have me back at any point in time, you let me know.
That would be great, man. I think we should do that.
Well, thank you for having me in the first place, and I appreciate all the kind words.
Well, I do have one final question for you before we get out of here. I just want to know,
Sure.
how is your father doing? Everything good with him?
My dad just needed to retire. It was time to retire. He's a very energetic, but like this powerful energy, personality, and he built his music career around being very intense. And literally, just music comes on, and he like tenses up. And he started to follow himself around with a heart monitor, trying to see like what was triggering him. And he was realizing very quickly that actually just rock music had come to be a trigger for his heart. So literally, just him going, "I'm done with this. It's time to retire." It's been the best thing for him. He's really doing really great, and now with our film company, in the near future, you're going to see films that he's written. He's a brilliant writer, and he's got the first film on the docket is from Defiant Pictures, is a Dee Snider original, and he's been wanting to get more into film for a long time. If people haven't seen his film Strangeland, Dee Snider Strangeland, great early torture horror film that's a big in the indie scene, but he deals with the same bullshit that me and my siblings have been dealing with. My brother Cody's an award-winning filmmaker. So is my brother Shane. The industry isn't set to promote talent. It's set to prop up itself. And there's all sorts of weird, superficial bullshit that gets involved between anybody and things that they want to do, which is half the reason why I started my own publishing company for music and for comics, and we started our own film company so that we could do the shit that we want to do. We're brilliant, and we make great stuff. And and we love working together. So in the future, you're going to see a lot of cool creativity coming out of Mr. Dee Snider, but it won't, fortunately, be in the music realm anymore, because it's definitely something that it was time for him to move away from, and he's moving into the wizard stage of his life. The old sage, and and a little bit less hard on his shoulders and a little hard on his heart. And my family, we are very spiritual and holistic, and we are all just have his back. And we want my mom and my dad to be on this planet for as long as humanly possible. So we are all, just trust they're in very good hands with a lot of people who love them very much, and we're going to be taking care of them, and they're not going away anytime soon. But less with the music though, because that was definitely just taking its toll on my father.
Well, man, thanks for setting the record straight. Wasn't 100% sure. Loved your dad.
Yeah, actually, you would love it. I just shared it with my dad because he said he wanted to hear it. But I just did, and it's an hour and a half, maybe an hour and 40 minutes of me taking you through Dee Snider's entire music catalog. He is one of the best songwriters on planet Earth. I'm such a fan of my father's, and I had written an article, just all like recommending all of his movies, and I turned it into a podcast. It just came out a couple weeks ago. I do a podcast called Coolest Alive. So for those of you who listen to podcasts, obviously, it's an entertainment podcast. Coolest Alive, like the third episode, third to most recent episode is like Growing Up Twisted, I think it's called, or something like that. And it's just all taking you through the great works of Dee Snider. And if that sounds good to you, you should check it out because I a lot of passion for my dad's music, and you will hear me gush about all the things I love.
All right.
Pleasure to meet you, Joseph.
You as well. You take care of yourself. Good luck with everything you got going on health-wise, and I'll be talking to you soon.
Thank you, brother. Yeah, getting better and better. I'm with my family. That's the important thing. And I am definitely on the path to healing. All right, bro. Talk to you soon.
I just want to give a huge thank you to today's guest for sharing the stories and the moments that remind us why rock music still has us banging our heads today. Whether it's a legend who helped build the soundtrack of our lives or the new blood keeping that volume turned up, every artist has a story worth hearing. So to all my fellow Gen Xers out there and millennials, keep those old vinyl records spinning, those cassettes turning, and the CD tracks skipping loud enough to embarrass your kids and possibly your grandkids. And to the younger generation discovering classic and modern bands for the first time, welcome to the party. So go dig deeper, explore the music, and find out why we still say we're rockin' like dockin'. And no, I will not be explaining that any further. I'm Gen X Joe, coming to you from the Wherever I May Roam studio, asking you to keep supporting the artist, keep discovering new music, and most importantly, keep rocking loud and living proud. We'll see you next time on the Youth Gone Mild podcast, where hairlines fade, but rock never does. Peace out. Props everyone for listening.